Well, hello, welcome to Drawing with Fire. I'm Valarie, your neighborhood pyrography artist, joined with hubby.
Okay.
And for babies,
Woof, woof,
hopefully, hopefully they will stay nice and calm. This is where I am currently at with the raven, and today we're going to focus on the beard feathers, also known as the hackles. And I'm going to start off with the 18 small. Hey Andrea, hey Sheila, hey Michelle. So let's get this lined up. There we go. I gotta remember I keep traveling, so hopefully I have room. And I am gonna pop up the beard and we are gonna get going. First I need to wipe off my tips, or my tip. I'm going to be using the, let's see, here we go. We will go here and we will pop off. Where is it at? So we have room on the screen. I'm looking for the active photo right now. There it is. Take it off the screen. Just quick recap. And I've already angled the camera, so might throw you off a little bit. I'm going to run my fingernail over the tip. My tip is clean, but we're just going to quickly go over it. I'm going to swipe on the white, which is the aluminum oxide. Do a couple of swipes, don't need to do a lot. Wipe it off on a clean portion, and we are good to go. If we keep maintenance of our tips, it really is that easy, that quick and easy. If we don't take care of our tips is when it gets harder to clean. Hey Spence. Alright, so we're going to start here under the beak and start laying in the darkest part of it, and then we're going to go from there. If we look, these feathers are definitely more hair type or fur type, so we need to keep that in mind. I think I'm going to start off with shorter strokes because up here the feathers are shorter, and then they get longer as we get to right about here, and then they go into the chest feathers, which are much bigger, and we will go over those feathers next week, including the wing, because those feathers are also smoother. If you look at the texture of these, they are definitely not as smooth as down in the wing and in the body. So right now I'm using the 18 small on 3. And I'm using the top half of the tip, but I'm also, because I'm pulling a backward C, I'm using the left side of my tip, the leg of it, meaning this part here, and I'm going to drag down, and I can go in between, making thicker or thinner lines, and the more I drag, the more heat is pulled from the tip into the wood, which makes a lighter stroke. So I need to keep that in mind. And anytime I lift my tip, because it's recovered its heat, it's going to burn hotter. Plus this is raw wood versus going over an already burned area. So it's always good to keep all that in mind. I'm going to tap in right along the beak, and this shows me right here that I will have to darken the bottom of the beak because tonal wise they're pretty close together. So I need to keep that in mind. I'm just going to follow along, going back and forth, and tap with just the tip in a small area to darken it. The part that you've seen burn now compared to where we were last week, and I forgot to throw up a photo for comparison. I spent about another 3.5 hours blocking in to get this far. And I still need to darken things up. I've been darkening the beak as I go. Now I don't want these, see, these are looking a little more uniform and I don't want that. So I can go over the stroke and in between the stroke and break them up. Maybe not make some of it as curled. And I can go in and use the more of the edge of the tip to separate them. When I go make a closer proper C, I twirl my tip to the right. Over here is going to be lighter because there's light hitting this, and at this angle we would have lighter feathers here. This is the furthest away from the light, the light's being blocked. So that's why this is the darkest, and we want that texture. We want it to look like the feathers. And there's some that kind of stand out, like this one, which is going to be hard to see in the reference photo, but I drew it in the pattern, so it's going to stand out more. I'm just going to overlap and drag just so we can get that texture. So this would be the same as doing hair. I'd also be looking for groups because just like hair, this does sit in groups. Even though it might look like a single feather, it's not. They lay over each other, so I got to keep that in mind. Let's see, we're going to turn a little bit more so I can get an easier angle without standing on my head. Because remember, it's always easier to turn your wood than to stand on your head. Even if you do yoga. So right here, under these smaller feathers, I do see a dark area, so I'm going to just drag in this dark with the tip, fill it in. I'm going to have to go back and darken these. They're blocked in. And remember, where feathers overlap, there's shadow. So we want that shadow. With that shadow, we do get more of the shape and the feeling. And anytime my pin's burning a little bit lighter, I just lift up and give it a minute. So now we've got two feathers overlap, just you doing a couple of strokes. And we'll do the same here. But we'll fill out this one a little bit more. Do a couple of strokes. And it really is this simple. It's just a matter of patience and moving your pen back and forth. So you can see how much lighter it's burning right here. It's based on the part of the pen that I'm using, how long of a stroke I'm making, because the longer I make the stroke, regardless of what burner you're using, it's going to pull the heat. The wood acts like a heat sink, so it's going to pull it. That's why when you touch your wood, it's hot. It's because it's soaked up that heat, because we are burning the wood. So we've got some smaller more defined feathers that are right about here. So I'm just going to make some smaller strokes just so I know where they're at.
Spence says, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm tired of these number 1 and 2 and 3 places. Oh,
I can see if I can turn them off.
we don't even really know what they are. Do you?
It's meant to get people involved in commenting. I didn't turn it on. But I can see if I can turn them off. Is it making it too competitive? Alright. So just cut in here. Create some shadow. Now right here I'm dealing with a piece of grain that's burning darker. So I can burn above it and below it and next to it. So as I don't darken. Let's want it darker. And then I can go to the bottom of the feathers that I've already created to shape them. And leave some of these lighter so that they look more realistic. If we just burn them all black, then they kind of feel flat. And they feel less realistic, which can be a artistic stylish choice if you want to do that. But if you're going for realism, these feathers are not pure black. And since I'm going for realism, I'm going to make sure that I leave some lighter strokes. See, the more we put them in, let me move that.
Spence says he just wants to comment without them. It makes him feel like he talks too much.
Oh, no, absolutely. You can never talk too much, Spence. In fact, the more you talk, the more it helps the live stream.
Yeah.
And YouTube pushes it out to other people. So actually, the more you talk, the more it helps.
No, he says it looks awesome.
Thank you. So we'll just separate some of them. And just like hair, although they may end straggly, because this is more, I don't want to say straggly because it makes it seem like the raven is a mess, and it's not. But these are more straggly compared to the more uniformed wing feathers. So we're just going to drag them down. I'm going to put in the side real quick, which is going to be smaller strokes, just like we did on the other side last week. So I'm going to move them quickly. Do some overlapping, drag them down. I need to go back to wearing my wrist brace because I haven't been wearing it in quite some time and my wrist definitely feels it. So we'll put these in. Like I said, we can darken some of these just to separate the groups a little bit. It gives more texture, and that's what we want. For realism, we want accurate tonal value, accurate shapes, and accurate texture. So these are lighter, so I'm going to go flat and just kind of fill them in. And then I can bump up to it. Some of these are more straight, so let's get those in. I'm not connecting them down at the bottom, that way I can fill in and get that more wired look, and I guess that's probably a better definition than straggly. It would be wired.
Okay.
And an M. Oh, Spence's crows are molting.
I was waiting to read that. But you got to it before me.
We have a teenager crow that keeps yelling at its siblings and I'm assuming parents to feed it, even though it's more than capable of getting its own peanuts. And it will just cry for hours. Alright. So we're going to go back up in here and do some separating. Again, some of these are straight down. So even if I miss the stroke, I can go back with the shading to fix it. And pull it over. Because there is separation. I'm going to darken more at the base, although as we get out, let's see here, as we get out, looking at my references, we do have a dark right here. And I think part of this is a change in direction, because these smaller ones are coming out. Now we can really see how much more the beak needs to darken at the bottom. Right now I'm just using the very tip to block in a little bit. Let's see here, this is more of a curve down. So I'll turn my wood so I can make that stroke easier. And sometimes it's easier to go to the bottom and then go to your overlay, the feathers that are on top, so that it looks like it's laying correctly. Or you can butt it up into the next group of feathers. I tend to go back and forth. Let's see here. Some of these I need to drag over, curl a little bit more. So it's okay that I kind of messed up the direction here a little bit in some of the areas, because when I go to overlay, it just gives more texture. And then I can just use the tip and go back and forth to do a little bit of shading. Do this a little darker here so that it looks like these are sitting on top of this longer one. And let's throw a shorter one out there. Let's see, I feel like I need to do a little bit more overlaying and working this. And a little dark. So I'm just going underneath, so we've got this little part that kind of sticks out a little lighter. Gives it more of a 3D effect. Right now I'm more the top half of the tip and I'm more flat just so I can fill in. Then I can always go back over it with the side. Yeah, you can hear the cranky teenager outside right now. It's like, I don't care that you're live streaming, feed me. Even though it rained last night, so there should be worms to get. Just going in between, kind of shaping them a little bit. Let's get this in here. So this is more coming down. So I'm just blocking in quickly because I'm going to shape it here in a minute. And this just shows that you can do it in a couple of different ways. In fact, I think I'm going to do a little bit of an erase right there just so I can. Get some of this graphite out of here. Go. Once I have it all blocked in, then I can wipe it down with denatured alcohol. But for now, I'm going to try to shape this a little bit better. And obviously it's not going to be exact. I didn't draw in every feather because then it gets too confusing as a pattern. So you really should pay a little bit more attention to your reference. But let's face it, we are human. We're not going to get it exact. As long as it feels like we nailed it, that's all we need. I definitely feel like I need some more darks up in here to separate.
Spence says his baby crow finally stopped crying for food all the time about a week ago. He was glad because he doesn't like waking up at 6 a.m.
Yeah, ours moves around the neighborhood.
I have to go without it.
Okay. The dogs are going to follow you out. So there's going to be a little bit of noise as...
Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
Are you coming back or are you good?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to leave my stuff here. But if they are loud, then I'll come in and get my stuff and take them out.
Just keep shaping. The more I work this, the more realistic it'll be. Two puppies stayed with me. Okay. No, don't get up, kiddos. So under here is a darker layer because this is the first layer. I didn't bring it all the way down. But we have some dark that shapes the feather. So I'm just going to use the top half of my... No. I think he was stretching. It's kind of hard when I'm not looking. Alright, there's a dark in this feather and then it's lighter. And it's a matter of going back and forth working it. See, the more you darken underneath, the more it lifts it off and separates without having to outline. Let's see here. These are more edge feather or string feathers. Thinner feathers, so I'm going to go up on my edge. I'm going to try to stay focused right here, just so we can see it come together more. That is my goal. As long as I don't get a look over here. Because I do tend to look ahead, and sometimes you just need to stay in one place. So we have this dark right here. Then I need to add more darks. So I can just use the tip to kind of shape. Go underneath to lift these up. And then it can get lighter. See, and the more we do that, the more it separates and gives us that feeling we're looking for. Over here, these kind of curve down a little bit, but we'll work more on the curve down here.
That was surprising.
I know. I have an X right here, and that means that there's a shadow that goes here, so I'm just going to use my tip. Let's see here. This goes all the way down to here, but for now, following the length of the feather, just get that in there, and then we've also got another dark up here that again goes down into thicker feathers, but I'm not going to focus on those till next week. And we can see how hot at 3 with this tip it burns. Let's see here, this comes up. And see, now I can work in between these lighter feathers a little darker. And it helps to shape them. Darken up where this grain is already dark. We can use it. And see, by putting some of these darks in underneath, it really lifts the top feathers, and that's what we need. And this just really shapes them. Makes them feel more real.
Spence says, I think I'll try to do this one once I'm done with the one he's working on right now.
Oh, good. The members have this pattern. In fact, we worked together to create it on Photoshop, or in Photoshop. That was a live stream. And to become a member, you just click the join button. Or if you don't want to go through YouTube, you can click the join under the Ko-fi link. You'll have access to all past member live streams and patterns. And this was one of our patterns. So I'm just shaping right now. I'm just, instead of continuing down. For now, I'm just trying to shape. I'm trying to show that the more you work an area, the more it'll start feeling realistic, which makes it easier to stick with. And the more that you stick with burning, the quicker you will see results. And that's regardless of what kind of style that you choose to do. I'm just trying to darken some of these. Let's see here, let's look straight on. I'll back off the camera here in a minute so you can see how it's looking. Because when I've got the camera close, it can be hard to really judge. Just trying to get more darks in there. It's kind of overlapping. And you can see if I darken the end of a feather on both ends, it kind of looks like it's curving. And of course the shadow around it also helps with that. And I haven't changed my temperature at all. It just depends on how quick I move my pen and what part of my pen that I use. Most pens save the ball tips because those are all the same shape all the way around. You should be able, with practice and experimenting, be able to get multiple textures or strokes out of one pen. And it really is a good practice, just in burning in general, but to get comfortable with your burner, to pick just a couple of tips and focus on learning how to use those before adding other tips. Because when you start adding a bunch of tips, then you start feeling overwhelmed as to which ones to use.
That's true.
And then once you start feeling overwhelmed, then you start shutting down because you feel stuck and overwhelmed. And once you shut down, you stop burning. And when you stop burning, you stop learning. So it really is less about the pattern that you pick and more about spending time with your tips. That makes the difference. I'm liking this thus far. Let's pull back the camera, see how we're looking. I'm just using my block of wax to hold up the piece so I can see how the feathers under the beak are looking like they have more texture. In fact, you can feel some texture. And we did that all with one tip, one heat setting. And it really does feel more like the Hackles. I'm going to stay out a little bit so we can do a bit more fill-in.
Ben says, yep, I have a number of tips and only know how to use 2 of them.
I would say, especially when you're new or you've gotten a new burner, to pick one tip, one reference photo, and try to burn as much as you can with that one photo and one tip. And just spend time hanging out with that pen. And I bet you'll see a difference really quick and feel less overwhelmed.
I'd like to add to that. As Ben says, incredible. So, like, I'm not a burner. I'm a painter. So, too many brushes is, I think, analogous to too many pen tips.
I'd say too many colors.
Well, that too. And I think that it's useful as an artist to do what Valarie said and to stick with more basic choices in the beginning, and then what happens is over time, as you become more experienced and more comfortable with your tools, that you will start to see things that would make your work easier, or maybe like, hey, if I had this particular pen tip, I could probably do this more efficiently and quicker, or it'd be easier to do this. But you won't know that without the experience. And it's easy to like watch videos of somebody and say, well, now we're going to switch to the ball tip because of this is what we use the ball tip for. But that may not be true in your own work. Like Valarie said, you do as much of it as you can with the tip that you're most comfortable with, and then see what you feel like you need. Like, you might be able to complete the whole thing with a single tip, especially if it's a bigger piece, because the details are larger and then you don't have to get so small. But just arbitrarily saying like, hey, I need X tip to do this kind of feather, or I need this tip to do shading, that's the kind of arbitrary decision making that comes without the experience. I think you need the experience first, and then you'll find that those decisions come more easily, and then you might find yourself branching out. I know that me as an artist, like, there's sometimes like for like traditional brushes, it's like, well, I can't get a certain effect as good without a specific brush, but I had to learn that. So I think it's important to just spend time with a smaller amount of tools and then branch out as you become experienced.
I'm sure companies won't like me saying that.
But it's the truth, though.
It is the truth, and I actually really don't care.
One of the, I had the benefit of, and it's not a necessity, so I don't want to make sure I'm not talking down to anybody. I got to go and get an art degree. I was fortunate to be able to do so.
No, you work for it. You had to use your GI Bill.
Well, yeah, but going to art school of any kind is not necessarily going to make you a better artist.
No.
It's what you take away from it. But one of the exercises that we did in one of our classes, it was a portrait class, was to use tools that we weren't used to. And so instead of, I wasn't allowed to use a brush, but I could use something else. And so I used a bit of wadded up canvas to paint instead of a brush. And what I found was that my skill and training as an artist superseded the brush type, that I was still able to make good art even if I just had a scrap of canvas as a brush. And so I think going back to Valarie's, saying like, hey, choose a tip and stick with it, I think it's more about you learning how to use that pen, and it kind of almost doesn't matter. I mean, it does, because you're not going to...
For certain things it does.
Yeah, if you just only have a ball tip, your work is going to look a certain way. But it's also not a bad exercise. Like, if you want to get used to a tip, and you're like, hey, what can this tip do? Then maybe for fun and for training, pull out one of those tips that you don't normally use, and then try and do a whole piece with that, and see how you adapt that tool to make it do what you need it to do. And that might also inform your choices of pens, because you might learn things about that pen tip or that pen that you wouldn't have known otherwise, had you not tried to do that. So that's an exercise that I would recommend.
Which is why I only recommend 4 pens total. And the reason you see the Chinese models on Amazon have multiple, like, they come with multiple copies of 20 tips, so it'll say, you get 40 tips. Well, the reason they do that is because their tips are crappy and they break easy, and so it's a replacement. It's not because you need all those tips, it's because, well, I guess technically you kind of do need all those tips because they're crappy and break easy. So they're replacements. It's not because you need them to burn.
And it's also marketing, because we as human beings
want to get as much for our money as we can.
Yep, it's like, oh, 40 tips. That's way more than 20 tips or 10 tips. But like for a complete piece of work, whatever medium you're working in, you might not need that many tools, actually, you know.
Especially with things getting more and more expensive. I want people to keep burning, and if money is a factor, I would rather you had less and enjoyed yourself creating than spending a ton of money, which I don't get paid by any burner company. All I've got's my Amazon.
you don't even get perks from Optima.
Well, I will get a pen to test every now and then, but he hasn't. Yeah, he hasn't. It's been years.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the 18 extra small is the last time. You can really feel the texture, which I like. I like being able to feel the texture without gouging the wood. I don't want to gouge the wood, but I do like to feel the texture. And in feeling the texture, you should be able to also see.
Andrea says she's going to try it.
Yeah, I mean, you all, not only did you have to, use an alternative to a paintbrush, but you also had to do a painting with only 3 colors, and they weren't color. What was the assignment? They weren't.
I was not allowed to use colors that I would normally use, and so I did a portrait of a tiger.
And I think it's your best tiger.
Yeah, I think it pushed me out of like my. We've talked before about left brain, right brain, and when your left brain, which is your analytical part, is presented with something that it considers nonsense, it just walks away, and that leaves your right brain free to actually do the work that it needs to do without interference. And I think that that's kind of the point of that exercise. So I painted a tiger with like neon green and orange and
was it yellow or white?
No, it was burnt sienna.
Burnt sienna.
Yeah, and those were the only colors that I had, and yet when you look at this painting, it reads as a tiger, even though the colors are wacky
and more interesting if you.
Yeah. So I think that that's really interesting because like Val said, it created something different. Like I was still able to paint in my style, but but it forced me to think other ways. And I think coming back to burning, because that's why we're here, I think that if you use a tip that you're not used to using, or even if you use like a substrate that you're not used to using, like paper or
a natural substrate.
Yeah, a natural, substrate. Because if you always burn on, basswood or whatever, poplar or whatever, and I think that burning on something that you wouldn't normally burn on, that's not toxic, mind you, and using a tool, one of your pins or pin tips, depending on who you are and what you got. I think using something that you're not used to using and then just committing to it, I think that will undoubtedly, like, you cannot help but improve your skills because it forces you out of your comfort zone and it makes you think differently. And the rational part of your brain that's been learning all of this pyrography stuff may not want to deal with it and may walk away and may leave you with the creative portion of your brain, and that might actually help you to access that part of your process a little bit better. So it's worth trying out.
This is a dark spot with a feather. See here, this feather is underlaid below this and this one, so I'm just putting a little bit of the dark in so I know where it's at. It's gonna go much darker. So let's see here. Let's switch the reference to the sepia so we can see what we're doing. Oh, well. Let's see here. What is on top? There it is. Turn all these other ones off. There we go. There we are. Actually, I'll move this down since my reference photo is right here. Come on. There we go. So we'll move it down here just so you guys can see it clear. And you can see how much we've done in 40 minutes. So for the rest of this thus far, I've put on some good music and then just burned. Which is always easier when I'm not having to think about a camera and talking and am I in the shot, even when I'm not doing a live, and I can just go.
Yeah.
Not worried about if I'm confusing anybody, because I do worry about that. Let's see here, I'm trying to shape underneath. So up here, even though these are layered, these groups tend to come down in V's. Now some of them are thinner V's, some of them are thicker V's. And how these are laying tend to be upside down V's. So that's the shape I'm trying to follow. Again, just like hair or long fur, they tend to lay in V's. So let me find one. I mean, so you can see the V right here. And that's what we're trying to get to, is a wider area and a point opposite of each other. So let's see here. Let me create a V right about here. So we're going to go in between these two feathers. And we can drag down. And yeah, they do tend to come to a point. We can sit here and go back and forth, molding and shaping. And if something feels a little off, cut it off, like I just did this feather. Connect it somewhere else. And it still looks like a feather. We didn't lose it. I'm going over the lighter areas just to push them back. There is no white in this area, so I'm pushing it back. And what I mean by pushing it back is I'm burning it so it's not so bright as in like the crown feathers. And I just go back and forth. May not get it. I'm not going to go full finish this, like call this area done, because I have to be able to adjust the lights and darks. So if I go full on black and call that area done, then I don't have room to adjust. And I know mentally it can feel better because you're seeing it come together. But then as you're going, you're like, oops, how am I supposed to adjust? Because I can't get it any darker. So I gotta leave myself room. So like here, these are smaller feathers. I'm trying to separate them. And these are feathers just like on the crown that we did last week. But they need to darken. Like these right here need to darken. Too light. So I'm just using the tip and moving over quickly back and forth to darken. I'm thinning out these feathers. They're a little thin, or a little thick. Because all this works together. But if I just fully finished it, and say I was going to added color to it, I have no room to adjust. I know we want to hurry up and be done. But spending time with our burnings makes all the difference.
I think that the more that technology marches on, I think that that particular aspect of art is going to become very important, because when we talk about, we'll just say, artificial forms of illustration, I'm not going to call it art, that you don't, that the people who generate that stuff, they have an idea, and they're able to make that idea, you know, materialize within a matter of minutes, if not seconds. And there's not really a contemplative process in there. They might adjust the image to make it more like, you know, like what they thought with different prompts and things like that. But they're not really spending the time. And the AI is also not spending the time. It's just complying with the request. And so what an artist brings is all the little decisions that you make on a piece, like why am I putting this element in, or why does this, you know, why does this shadow look good? It's all those little 1,000 little decisions that you do during creation of an art piece of art, as well as the time that you spend with it, imbues it with kind of a journey and an experience that people can connect to. And you don't get that with the new shiny thing in illustration, which is AI. So I think it's super important, you know, to spend that time, because I think that while it might seem cool to be able to bang out an illustration, even if you're a competent illustrator or an artist, to be able to bang out a sketch in like 5 minutes, if you put that 5-minute sketch, it doesn't matter how awesome it is, next to a piece that you've actually spent some time and contemplated the creation of. If you put those pieces of work side by side and you ask another human which one that they prefer, most of the time they're going to go with the one that you spent more time on, because there's more to it.
There's soul to it.
Yeah.
AI has no soul.
They can connect to it, and even non-AI art. You know, if you got somebody who's just like able to like create a accurate piece of artwork in a few seconds, because there's artists that do that. They're like, oh, I can do a likeness in 30 seconds. You know, with just a minimum amount of strokes. Well, that is also a skill.
It is.
And that's a highly technical skill. But that artist, despite that skill and how clean it might look, they haven't really spent any time with that piece. And so there's not time to make those kinds of decisions. They're just going for the likeness, and that they're not there's not a lot of character in that. And so those kinds of illustrations all kind of tend to look samey, you know.
And they call it style.
Well, they call it style. And like I said, it is a skill. And that is something else that we had to do in art school, was to decrease the amount of time that we spent with a piece, you know, to make sure that the strokes that we're putting down were essential, you know. But that's a training. It's a form of training. It's not the end goal, you know. The idea is to get an economy of strokes to make something out of less that looks like you want it to. But the goal is not really to do it quicker. That's just a tool to help you hone that skill. And that way, when you go to your artwork that you do spend time with, that you're able to use that economy of strokes to define the base of the image, and then you can develop off of that. It's designed to make you more accurate.
Let's see here.
But it's not a... you're going for realism anyway, I suppose. That is not a... It's not the end goal at all.
Right now I'm shaping the beak with the beard, and I have elected to take out the lighter parts that are underneath. I don't feel it necessary to put that in. I don't know if it's beard feathers or if it's scratches from, you know, the beak rubbing up against a tree or what have you. I don't feel that's necessary. So I'm just trying to darken and shape. Every time I've added to this piece, I've at some point worked on the beak as well, just to keep bringing it darker. Because every time I add something new, then I see, oh, that needs to go darker. Right now I'm on the top half of the tip. I'm intentionally going over the beak and into the beard, doing these drag marks so that it looks like the hair is sitting along the beak like it should be. I'm shaping these. I may actually take these out. We'll see if it takes away from the piece or not. I'll make that decision later. We do have some darks here. I'm just trying to bring it all together. And I definitely don't want to smooth out my strokes. And if I keep blending, I will smooth out the strokes. So I don't want that. We would want that more on these feathers over here, which I don't have a whole lot of them because I zoomed in on the head. But I do have enough for us to burn next week. So I will make sure and leave us some feathers to work on. And then once this is blocked in, all we have to do is make our adjustments and then it's done. I think I will get this done in less than 12 hours.
Wow.
And watch that bite me in the butt, because I said something. There's dark there. I saw the X, there's a dark there, so I was just putting that in real quick. Yep, I can make softer strokes with being just on the tip and dragging down. Dragging in the direction. Let's see here.
Thank you, Spence. Spence says, don't forget to like.
Yes, please don't forget to like, especially since we're public. Again, YouTube then decides, oh, we can show it to other people. Even though people are subscribed to YouTube. Algorithms, they suck. I don't care what platform.
Well, they're designed to make it more
Let's
difficult.
see here. So this dark comes up in here. So just get up on the tip and on the edge. Kind of block it in. But yep, I will keep going. The right here is where the hackle or beard ends. And then we go into the longer feathers, so we'll do that next week. So I will continue to get the beard in, as well as the head. And just so I can talk about it, because we did it last week, I've just been going back and forth over this area to darken it. Sometimes I go with the tip to do some shaping with my shading. Other times I am using the edge and dragging in that direction. I'll get a darker stroke, which I need that as part of the shaping. So basically, even this area, even though it's the cheek, is very similar to the hackles.
Andrea says thank you for an interesting class.
Well, thank you. Hopefully it was helpful.
And I must say, this is the first time that I've been able to join the whole stream because of the doggies. So it's nice to be back.
Yep, they were good girls. Let's see. I can thin this feather out a little bit by just overlaying, making it look like it's laying on top of another area. See how our darks make all the difference. You can use them to shape, really make things look real. That is the goal for me. I know that may not be everybody's goal, but that's the goal for me. And sometimes I try to fight it, but it's like,
I think what's...
I know who I am, so
Yeah.
I just want to improve what I already do.
I think that what develops over time is that you have a style. And if that's realism, if that's what drives you, then, absolutely. But you may find that your style is maybe includes some stylistic elements or, differs from like full-on realism in different ways. And if that's the case, that's fine.
Yep.
The only thing that I would say is that be careful not to make the mistake of settling and calling it style.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like a lot of artists are like, doesn't look exactly realistic, but this is my style. Well, that's for some people. That's just kind of letting themselves off the hook for trying harder, But if you see a piece, if you're working on a piece and you're happy with it, and there's stylistic elements, and you're really truly happy, you're like, yeah, this is what is in my head, then that's okay. But if you're looking at a piece and you're like, it's not exactly what I thought, but then you have a thought of like, this is just my style.
Mm-hmm.
That is your subconscious. That's your left side of your brain, like wanting to be done with it and trying to get you to, to like, hey, let's just call this good. It's good enough for government work. Let's go.
Yeah.
And then make sure that you make that distinction.
Especially since in doing that, you lose the ability to learn more.
And you see that in artists all the time, where they are like, like, hey, I have this piece of work, and they've got friends and family telling them that they're awesome, on but
And as people, they probably are awesome.
yeah, but you know what I mean? It's like, oh no, this piece is amazing, but then you're looking at it and you're like, oh, I don't really care for it. But then they're like, oh, this is just my style, and it's like, well, you can kind of tell when that's a true statement and when it's not, because when people are settling, they're often very adamant about it being their style. Like, this is just my style. Don't criticize it. It's just my style. But they're only fooling themselves, and I think that on some level, except for the ones that are like really delusional, I think on some level that most artists maybe, understand what's going on really. They just kind of don't want to admit it. So don't compromise.
No, then you sell yourself short, and you never find out what you can really do.
Yep. One thing I've been seeing with the advent of AI is people, we'll call them non-artists, and this does not include anybody in the Toasties community.
I don't think anybody's...
No, in the Drawing with Fire. But you'll see people saying, I have to use generative prompts to create art. It's not art. Because I don't have the skill to be an artist, or I don't have the imagination, or I'm not an artist. That is another version of them letting themselves off the hook, because clearly they desire to make art, but they do not desire to learn. And that's the difference between an artist and someone who's not an artist, is that learning is part of the journey, and it's something that you aspire to do, and it's something that you enjoy, So it's kind of like the difference between a race car driver and a sponsor. A sponsor says, well, I'm winning this race with my team, because they want to claim a win. But they're not skilled enough to drive the car, so they got to hire somebody else to do it. The person driving that car in the race enjoys what they do. They enjoy the thrill of it. And to not do it would be an abomination to them. They're like, why would I hire somebody else to race for me? This is what I do. And that's the difference, I think, between artists and, we'll say, non-artists, or is that the artist enjoys what they do, does not necessarily want to streamline the process. They just want to become better at it. And I think that the non-artist just wants to get to the finish line and claim the result. So
you can do it. Just stick with it.
Yep. And if you're here, then I feel like that's one of the reasons why we're a smaller community, or Val's community is smaller. Is that because the people that are here are real artists. They're ones that are trying to learn how to actually do the work, as opposed to having somebody throw shortcuts at them or to do the work for them.
Well, there are things that once you learn how to do it, then you can figure out the shortcuts.
Yeah, but that's part of the process.
Yeah, it's part of learning.
So, anyway.
Learning is good.
Learning is learning.
Mm-hmm. If you're not learning, you're dying.
Get busy learning, get busy dying.
One or the other.
And I think that when we stop learning too, that's a little death in itself.
Yep.
Because if you give up on learning and you just quit and you say, oh, I can't do it. Like, for first of all, if you're here, you can do it. I mean, that's Val's tagline, is that you can do it. So yes, you can do it. You desire to do it, you absolutely can. It just takes work and dedication. Yeah. But when you give up and say, oh, I can't do it, and that's a little death.
You give up on yourself.
It's not the process you're giving up on. You're giving up on yourself. So
let's see here.
And this is honestly the way that some people find out that they're not artists, or anything, or a race car driver. Because if it's too hard,
musician,
and they don't want to invest time, they thought it would be easier
There we
then
go.
they're not looking at the journey. They're just looking at they want the accolades for it. Like, I don't know.
Let's see here. I'm trying to see if I can get it to the size that it actually is.
Are you getting ready to wrap up?
Yeah, we're wrapping up now. Let's see. We got any other questions? I need to turn my burner off. Just so you know, you saw me working these darks and what have you. I'm not going to touch it right this second because it just takes a second to cool off. But I want to show you, because even though I was able to get darker burn in these areas, I kept my temperature at 3. And you can see, maybe you can't, let's see here. This should already be cooled off. We can still see a nice light glare, not a matted glare, that my tip is still clean. So I burned for over an hour doing darker burns, and my tip is still clean. If it had a bunch of carbon on it, this light would be muted. So because it's all shiny still, it shows you the tip is still clean. In fact, let's see here. Since I don't clean this side, well, it doesn't burn on this side. But you see how it's more dull? The side doesn't get cleaned. I'm trying to figure out the best way. Oh, I know what the best way is. We are going to turn this focus on, autofocus on, and hopefully, come on camera, give it to me. See, we don't see any matting, and this tip is completely, my fingernail doesn't feel anything, and it's nice and clean. So I don't have to sit there and keep, scrubbing my tip because it's clean, because I controlled my heat. I used the lowest heat setting possible, and it makes all the difference. Let me turn off focus. Let me see if I can get this adjusted to what it actually is. Ugh.
Yeah, and you see that in a lot of artists. I know we're wrapping up, but who are prolific painters. They try to use the minimum amount of paint as they can because paint's expensive.
And you gotta clean the brushes.
So by using the lowest temperature that you can, you're preserving your tips and making them last longer. So it's not only a good skill for realism, but a technique for realism, but it's also a way to ensure that you're not having to replace your equipment all the time.
Yep. I've used the same, let's see here, I've been using this for 5 years, which you can tell from the handle. It's dirty. I don't care about this. It's going to get dirty. I'm working. But Pat, every time I send him an updated photo of my tip, he's like, why is this? It still looks so brand new. It's because I take care of my tools. If my pins aren't happy, I'm not happy. Ooh. That's a coffee cup. Copyright, trademark, mine. Alright, again, if you're new, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. This is available on replay, and if you want the pattern, you can become a member and get the pattern for free for as little as $5 a month. And am I forgetting anything? If you're watching on replay, please don't forget to leave a comment. That helps grow the channel. We've been at this for 9 years now. Whew. 9 years. I'd like to make it to 100,000 at some point and get that YouTube button. At this rate, I'll be... Yeah.
Is it 100,000?
For the first YouTube button?
Like
yep.
Subscribers?
Yep.
Holy crap.
Yep. Alright, say it with me. You know what to say. You are awesome. You can do this. Why? Because you're a pyro artist. Happy burning, guys. See you next week. We do the big smooth feathers. Bye. We need to have it in the theme song.